You think your HOA is strict? Try having the president herself march up to your gate. Clipboard in one hand and a fake smile cracking under the pressure. Demanding to inspect your backyard pool like she's the damn pool police. What happened next turned this quiet suburban street into a full-blown reckoning, and left Karen wishing she'd never knocked on that door. Picture a sunny cul-de-sac in suburban Ohio. The kind of place where every lawn looks vacuumed and every mailbox matches the HOA-approved shade of beige neutral. That's where Jordan Hale thought he'd finally found peace. After years in the city, the 34-year-old graphic designer had poured his savings, and his soul, into this modest ranch house with a big backyard. The highlight? The pool he built himself over 2 summers. Not some flashy resort thing. Just a clean, peaceful rectangle of blue water where he could float, think, and forget the world. Jordan kept to himself. Nice guy. Quiet. The kind who waved at neighbors but didn't pry. Enter Karen Whitaker, HOA president for 8 glorious years. Karen didn't just enforce rules, she was the rules. Pearls, pastel cardigans, and a voice that could curdle milk while sounding perfectly reasonable. We're all in this together, she'd say at every meeting. Eyes scanning for anyone who dared to deviate from the beige. To Karen, the HOA wasn't about property values. It was about control. And she was terrified of losing her little throne. It started innocently enough. The way these things always do. Jordan had just filled the pool for the first time when the first letter arrived. Notice of violation, unauthorized water feature. Karen claimed the pool disrupted the neighborhood aesthetic and might lower property values by 0.3%. Jordan laughed it off at first. He'd checked the bylaws before breaking ground, nothing about backyard pools. He sent a polite reply with the receipts and his building permits. 2 days later, Karen was at his gate. Jordan. Sweetie, she called out in that syrupy tone. Waving like they were old friends. I need to come back there and take a quick look. Just to make sure everything's up to code. You understand. Jordan stood on his porch. Arms crossed. Actually, Karen. I don't. This is private property. You don't have the right to inspect my backyard without notice or a warrant. Her smile tightened. The covenants say the HOA has the right to ensure compliance. It's for everyone's safety. Safety from what? My responsibly built. Permitted pool? He kept his voice calm. But inside he was already taking mental notes. Karen's eyes narrowed. You're making this difficult. Jordan. I'd hate for this to escalate. She leaned in. Especially after those rumors I've been hearing about noise complaints. There were no noise complaints. Jordan barely played music louder than a whisper. But the seed was planted. That was the moment everything changed. Over the next few weeks, the fines started rolling in like clockwork. $150 for excessive backyard lighting, his subtle solar path lights. $200 for non-compliant fence height, it was exactly to code. $75 for visible pool equipment, never mind that it was hidden behind approved lattice. Each letter was written in the same passive-aggressive corporate speak, as a valued member of our community. We're sure you'll want to correct this promptly for the good of us all. Jordan didn't argue. He paid the first few. Documented everything. And smiled politely when Karen drove by slowly in her white SUV. Pretending to admire the roses. But he was watching. And he was recording. Then the rumors started. At the neighborhood book club, Karen casually mentioned she'd seen strange cars at Jordan's house late at night. You know. With everything going on these days, she'd trail off meaningfully. Soon the whispers spread, Jordan was hosting wild parties. Jordan was not family-friendly. One neighbor even asked him, half joking, if he was running some kind of underground club. Jordan just laughed it off. But the isolation stung. He'd moved here for peace, not to become the local cautionary tale. The real escalation came when Karen announced a neighborhood safety initiative. New security cameras were going up, paid for by HOA dues. Of course. Most pointed at common areas. 3, however, were conveniently angled straight at Jordan's backyard and side gate. One even captured the pool perfectly. Jordan installed his own cameras the same week. High def. Motion triggered. Legally placed on his property. Every time Karen just happened to walk past and peer through the fence, it was captured. Every time she directed the camera installer to adjust the angle toward his house, it was timestamped. One sunny Saturday, Karen showed up again. This time with 2 board members in tow. Jordan. We've had more complaints, she said, voice dripping with concern. The pool is clearly a safety hazard. We need access to verify the fence height and chemical levels. It's in the bylaws, section 14.2. I believe. Jordan opened the gate just enough to hand her a folder. Here's a copy of the actual bylaws. Section 14.2 is about common areas, not private backyards. And here's the letter from my attorney explaining why your cameras are illegal surveillance. Feel free to read it while you're standing on public property. Karen's face went from polite to purple in seconds. This is outrageous. You're being hostile and uncooperative. The board will have to vote on further action. One of the board members behind her shifted uncomfortably. Jordan just smiled. You do that, Karen. And while you're at it, maybe explain to them why HOA funds paid for cameras that only seem to monitor one house. The board member's eyes widened slightly. Karen spun on her heel and stormed off, muttering about people who think they're above the rules. The pressure kept building. But Jordan never cracked. He stopped paying the bogus fines and started logging every single one. He reached out quietly to other neighbors who'd been targeted, the elderly couple fined for having unauthorized wind chimes, the single mom cited for her kid's basketball hoop. Piece by piece, he built the case. Emails showing Karen personally approving camera placements. Invoices revealing she'd used HOA money to install a new patio at her own house under the vague label Community Security Upgrades. Screenshots of group chats where she coordinated the rumor campaign against him. The stress was real. Jordan lost sleep. He stopped inviting friends over because the cameras made everything feel watched. But every time he felt like quitting, he'd watch the footage of Karen snooping around his fence at dusk, clipboard in hand, face twisted in that self-righteous scowl. And he'd smile. Then came the annual community meeting. The rec center was packed. Karen stood at the front in her signature pastel blazer, gavel in hand, looking every bit the benevolent dictator. The agenda was boring until new business came up. Jordan stood. The room quieted. I'd like to address some concerns about how our HOA is being run, he said. Voice steady. He connected his laptop to the projector. Specifically, the misuse of funds, illegal surveillance, and targeted harassment. The first slide hit, photos of the cameras pointed directly at his pool. Then video footage, clear as day, of Karen herself on his property line, adjusting one of the cameras while talking on her phone, make sure it gets the whole backyard. We need to document everything this guy does. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen laughed nervously. This is taken out of context. Those cameras are for everyone's safety. Jordan clicked to the next slide, financial records. Interesting. Because these invoices show the cameras were paid for with HOA dues. But the only properties under constant surveillance are mine and the 2 other residents who questioned your spending last year. Karen's hands gripped the podium. Her usual sweet tone cracked. You have no right to dig into private board matters. Actually, Jordan said calmly. As a paying member, I do. And so does the state attorney general, who I've already contacted with copies of all this. The room erupted. Neighbors who'd stayed silent for years started speaking up. The elderly couple with the wind chimes. The single mom. Even some of Karen's former allies looked uneasy. Karen's face went through the full Karen spectrum: denial, rage, panic. This is a witch hunt. He's just mad because we're enforcing the rules. That pool is an eyesore. It's bringing down our standards. Jordan played one final clip, Karen in her own driveway, laughing with a board member. If we keep the pressure on, that Hale guy will sell and we can finally get a proper family in there. Dead silence. Then the board chair, an older man who'd always seemed spineless, cleared his throat. Karen, I think we need to table this and call an emergency vote on leadership. The vote was swift. 87% in favor of removing Karen immediately. An independent audit of the books was approved on the spot. Karen stood there, pearls trembling, face a mask of pure disbelief. For the first time, the neighborhood saw what was behind the sweet voice and the cardigans: a small, terrified woman who'd mistaken fear for respect. She grabbed her purse and marched out without another word, the click of her heels echoing like a surrender. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood breathed again. The new interim board repealed dozens of ridiculous rules: the exact grass height requirement, the approved flag days only, the ban on visible pool floats. Cameras on private property were removed. Fines against Jordan were refunded with apologies. Neighbors started talking to each other again. Real conversations. Not just HOA-approved small talk. Someone organized a block party. Jordan brought burgers and finally let people see the pool they'd heard so much about. Kids splashed. Adults laughed. No one whispered about that guy anymore. Karen's house went on the market 3 months later. Last anyone heard, she moved to a condo downtown where, rumor has it, there's no HOA at all. Jordan still floats in his pool most evenings. The water's calm. The cameras are gone. And every once in a while, when the sun hits the water just right, he raises a glass to the quiet power of patience, and to every person who's ever been told their backyard doesn't meet community standards. So here's the question. Folks, was Jordan wrong for quietly building his case and exposing the abuse of power? Or was Karen the real villain, the one who turned keeping the neighborhood nice into a weapon? Who was truly in the wrong here? The guy who wanted to enjoy his own property in peace? Or the woman who thought her clipboard gave her the right to rule everyone's life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one.